What's goody? It's your host, Jay Rose, as always, and welcome back to the Bag Talk podcast. Today, we have a guest talking to us about the Klay Thompson trade, but I had some other things that I also wanted to get into in this episode, so we're going to get into that first segment. Let's get into it. Today, we got a special guest. Our two teams have been having a lot of dealings with each other this past week over free agency. We got a Warriors fan in the building. Daniel, say what's up to the people.
What's good?
I feel like it's been a very interesting week for both of our teams, and considering you're a Warriors fan, I definitely want to hear your thoughts on how that Klay Thompson trade went down and how you feel about that. Because for my team, I feel like that's all positive, and I feel like being that I also do like the Warriors, I feel like what they got back in return was a little iffy. So how do you feel about just the Klay Thompson trade in general? Matter of fact, I want to ask you, how do you feel about Klay Thompson throughout like the entire last season? Because it was a pretty rocky season for like the most part between the Warriors and Klay.
Yeah, but Klay Thompson, he didn't do good that last season. He went 0 of 10 from an elimination game, but people like give him too much heat for that. It was just a bad season. He dropped 39% from 3-point range, which is still good. Not a lot of NBA players have that stat. So like I think he's gonna have a comeback season for the Mavericks stuff, but overall with the trade and stuff, it's devastating because they've been through a lot. Steph, Dre, and Klay Thompson. They won 4 rings together. Klay tore his ACL and then he came back and won the championship, but that's the game. He wants the money, and then I think he felt unappreciated. Warriors were treating him when they put him on the bench and stuff. So it is what it is. It's devastating for me, but yeah.
My whole thing with Klay is like he had an opportunity way earlier in the season to sign an extension, and he thought he deserved more money then. Like he was looking for a max contract, and I don't think anybody is giving Klay Thompson a max contract these days. So I was like, I don't know about that, and he chose to bet on himself. And I respect it, but we see how that all worked out. Like, betting on yourself not going to work every single time. And Klay Thompson, coming off the season that he had, I don't think Klay had a great season. I think as a shooter, he had a great year. And not for nothing, I don't think he was in a great headspace overall. I feel like that was kind of looming over the season the entire time, and it gave him more pressure to try and go out there and perform. Like, there's even been times in the season where I kind of saw his confidence drop. And especially when they moved him on the bench for pods, it was kind of weird. So I kind of like the fact that Klay moved on from that. I feel like the writing was kind of on the wall even like last season. Even when they won a championship, I feel like Klay just hasn't really been the same guy for the Warriors. So I'm not really mad that he wanted a new setting. What I am mad at though is the Warriors, because my goodness, they didn't get jack shit. They didn't get anything.
I know, bro. They got what do they got?
Nobody.
Fritos and Cheetos. That's what they got.
They got two second-round draft picks for Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
And also they got rid of Chris Paul. Chris Paul, they had an offer for Zach LaVine in the first. They turned it down and ended up waiving Chris Paul. So I just didn't like it. I'm not a big fan of having players walk and not getting anything in return. Same way with the Clippers and PG. So I'm not sure about that at all. But what other moves do you guys think you can make like in the free agency to kind of remedy that?
I don't know, man. Because we got like Paul George. He's in the Sixers now. Thompson's gone.
I've heard a lot of rumors about. I heard rumors about Larry Markkinen and Buddy Hield.
Yeah, I heard about Buddy Hield, but I don't think he's gonna be like a good fit for us. Not like as good as Klay Thompson, but I don't think we're gonna get Larry Markkinen either. Buddy Hield, we just gotta see about that, because I'm not sure that we're gonna.
Yeah, I feel like this Warriors team just over the last couple of years kind of shot themselves in the foot. Like, you had Jordan Poole, and you traded him for Chris Paul. I didn't think that was a great move. And then this year you had Klay. I even thought Draymond probably should have been gone last year after the whole Jordan Poole situation went down. So for Draymond to still be here, Klay walked for nothing. And that pretty much means that you gave up Poole for nothing because Chris Paul's no longer here. There's really no free agents left to go get. I think like maybe DeMar DeRozan, but I'm not sure if you have the cap space for that.
I think he's going to like the Lakers are looking for him.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard, especially with how the tax aprons are right now. There's not a lot of money to go around. So I think the Warriors are in a weird spot. You think they should still be building around Steph, or do you think they should probably try to move on from that whole situation?
No, I think they should still be building around Steph. I think we should because Podsy's definitely going to be in the starting lineup now to replace Clay for shooting guard. So I think that like Steph, he's still going to have to like be a good player. He's getting old. He's going to retire soon, but he's still going to be like the lead player for the Warriors. He's still going to carry the team. But the Warriors, I don't know about this like next season. I don't know how they're going to do. But I think Curry's just going to have to like again.
Yeah, and I feel like the Warriors are more likely going to be in the same spot that they were at this season, around the 10th seed. And I don't want to see Steph Curry, because I know Steph is still going to come out here and hoop. So to see Steph Curry on a team that's probably not going to be competing for anything is going to suck. I think they honestly, guys like Moses Moody, Kuminga, Wiggins, should be like completely ready to get rid of those guys if we're still building around Steph. Because I agree, I think when you have a guy like that, that's a once in a generation type player. He's still performing at a once in a generation type of level. So if you can surround him with some good pieces, we know what Steph can do. I don't think Draymond and Wiggins and I don't think that's a great core to have around him. But it kind of feels like all the pieces are just kind of dismantling right now for the Warriors. So I do hope that they kind of pick a side. I feel like they've been on the fence of having young players and trying to build with this core for a long time. So even if they do end up saying we're done with Steph, which I don't think they're gonna do, I wouldn't be too mad at that either, to be honest.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all got 4 rings. I got 4 rings.
What?
Yeah, I got 4 rings. The dynasty happened, so I wouldn't. Anything that happens after this, in terms of winning, I feel like it's just a cherry on top for the Warriors, to be honest.
But if Clay wins his 5th ring before Curry, I'm a flip. Because I don't want that to happen. But the Mavericks do have a better... I'm a flip, bro. But the Mavericks do have a better shot of going to the finals next year. Than
Absolutely. And I feel like Clay made a great choice coming here instead of LA. Because especially with the situation he's in, looks like he wants to be in a more... I want to say like tight-knit situation. The Mavericks don't get a ton of press. So if you're on the Warriors and going to the Lakers, it's like more or less the same situation, playing with LeBron. So if you have one bad game, all that pressure is going to be on you still. If he plays bad in Dallas, it's only going to be a big problem if it's like he plays ass damn near the whole season. We need Clay to do pretty much 2 things. We need him to shoot threes and play defense. What'd you say?
Were you hating when he went 0 from 10 in an elimination game?
I wouldn't say
you hating
that? But I was like, damn. Damn. Like that's terrible work. Somebody got to help Steph. You can't do that. That's crazy. But I feel like even still having those expectations of Clay, 0 for 10, like I said, is ridiculous. That's crazy. But he had a very big role in the Warriors. I feel like on this team, he's going to be more relegated to, you know what I'm saying? He's going to have his role. So if Clay goes off, Clay goes off. If he don't, we got Luka and Kyrie. So we need him to come here. He's going to get a ton of fucking open looks because Luka and Kyrie create some of the most open looks in the league. All he got to do is really hit shots and play some decent defense, and I'll be happy with the pickup.
So you think he's going to do good in small forward? Because it's probably going to be Luka point guard, Kyrie shooting guard. And then
yeah, Clay. That's my whole thing. I probably would rather Clay come off the bench, to be honest, especially with the way that we play. Our minutes are very staggered. So even, I guess it doesn't really matter if he starts or not, because usually our starting 5 isn't the starting 5 that finishes the game anyways. But we got Najee Marshall, who is also a good shooter and plays great defense. So I feel like I'd prefer a lineup with Luka, Kyrie, Marshall, PJ Washington, and then Derek Lively. Have Clay as a 6th man, and he's gonna play. Like, it's not like he's gonna come off the bench and we're gonna be using him like as a bench player. He's gonna come in, and once Luka sits or Kyrie sits, Clay's gonna come in, and we need that offense. So he's going to get minutes. He's gonna get shots off. So I don't think it would be a big issue coming off the bench for our team. We saw that with Lively and Gafford last year. They kind of just flip-flop, and they're both big pieces of our team. So I don't think him coming off the bench would be an issue. If you had to give your Warriors offseason a grade, what would you give it so far?
The off season?
Yeah.
F. No, it's just terrible. No, it's trash.
I agree. F minus. Yeah, it's pretty disappointing.
But yeah,
I don't even know what I expected. Ever since Bob Myers stepped down, I feel like Mike Dunleavy ain't
I
been doing
know
a great job.
he ain't been doing nothing, bro. But I was expecting. I would have rather have Javon Green went rather than Clay. Draymond Green, he was the one keep getting ejected, keep getting suspended, and like he was causing trouble with the teammate chemistry and stuff. And that's what the Warriors rely on is chemistry.
If I'm being completely honest,
that
I thought both of them should have left. To be honest, I felt like around a season ago, around last season after they won that championship, I know it's hard to really make those kind of decisions coming off a ring, but I kind of saw the writing on the wall. Like Clay is clearly not the same, and he hasn't been that same kind of player since he got hurt. Draymond getting old, and his offense is like non-existent. So it was kind of like if you move those guys right now when their value is really high, they still had Poole at the time. Wiggins just got paid. I feel like they could have made something work with that roster. But now we're at the point where you traded Klay Thompson, didn't even get a player back. I feel like even if you do trade Draymond, who you gonna get for Draymond Green at this point in his career? So it's not looking too good.
yeah. Congrats, man. Well, y'all got Clay. The dynasty's probably over for us. It is over for us probably, but it was a great one for us.
Absolutely.
2022. Yeah.
I definitely hope Steph Curry can get some help though. I do not want to watch Steph Curry on no sorry roster for his last years. There are also some other things going down in free agency that I wanted to speak about. And the big one is obviously DeMar DeRozan going to the Sacramento Kings. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. I don't think that's an amazing fit. If I'm being completely honest, we have De'Aaron Fox, who although his three-point shot has gotten a lot better throughout the years, is essentially a slasher. We have Domantas Sabonis, who also does his best work in the paint and mid-range area. And then you add DeMar DeRozan, who's like almost exclusively a slasher / mid-range shooter. So I think the spacing on that team is going to be a little bit weird. I will say that I think upgrading and at least being active and finding players to upgrade your positions to make your team better is very essential in today's NBA. So I'm not going to fault the Sacramento Kings for going out and looking for a star. They got out and they got a guy like DeMar, who was pretty much the last good player on the market. And if you watch my tier list video, you know that I'm not a big fan of these teams being really stagnant, especially if you're a team like the Sacramento Kings, who didn't even make the playoffs last year. I think you do need to make moves. The West is getting better. The Thunder are getting better. They were the first seed. The Mavericks are getting better. They were literally in the finals. So in order to compete with a lot of these teams, you have to make sure you have your upkeep. You have to do your maintenance to make sure your team and your roster gets better. So I'm not faulting them for this trade. I don't think it's a bad trade. I just don't think this makes them contenders or anything like that. I think the West is going to be a dogfight. I think on any given night, the Sacramento Kings can potentially beat a lot of rosters, and the Western Conference is going to be an absolute dogfight night after night. When these Western Conference teams play, whether it's the Rockets, the Warriors, the Suns, the Clippers, even though there's clear disparities between some of these teams, there's a lot of star power in the Western Conference, and there's a lot of well-built teams. There's a lot of very, very decent teams, even though I don't think the Kings are built to make a super huge run. They got two of the most clutch players in the league. They got one of the better big men in the league. So I'm not saying it's impossible, but I just don't think this takes them like over the top. I think they're very fringe right now. I think they'd be around like a 6 seed at best, 5 seed, 4 seed. You know what I'm saying? The West gets really, really close. So I can see them ending up with like a 4th seed, but I don't think they'll do a lot of damage. I think they'll realistically be around 6 or back in the play-in. If I had to pick teams ahead of them, I'm still going the Mavericks. I'm still going the Thunder, the T-Wolves, the Nuggets. That's 4 right there. I still got faith in the Lakers. I know a lot of people are kind of off the Laker train already, but I don't think the Lakers are a bad team by any means. If they can stay healthy next season, I can definitely see them getting into a playoff spot and avoiding the play-in. I don't think the Clippers are contenders, but I don't think they're terrible. I think that would be a comparable matchup, Kawhi and Harden versus that Kings roster, how it is right now. And yeah, we got Phoenix in that same boat. That's just how I'm feeling about the Western Conference right now. I don't think this Kings trade changes things in the grand scheme, but I think that they'll be really, really fun to watch. And I am looking forward to seeing De'Aaron Fox and DeMar DeRozan play ball, because I just think that'll be some entertaining basketball, some athleticism, a lot of good skill work, a lot of good mid-range shots, and I just think that's gonna be a fun watch. So yeah, I hope. Shoot, I know DeMar happy. He back in the Bay Area, back in California. That's where he from. So I know DeMar is chilling. But I think that'll be a very, very interesting tandem to watch. It's an interesting big three. And next up, I want to talk about the Bulls, obviously, because they gave away DeMar DeRozan in this deal, and I'm just not really impressed by Chicago and anything that they've gotten back for any of their deals. I'm very disappointed in Chicago. I want to go and see exactly what they got, because it's just not a good deal. Sacramento Kings got DeMar. They gave Harrison Barnes and an unprotected 2031 pick swap to the Spurs, and they gave Chris Duarte in 2 seconds and cash to the Chicago Bulls. So essentially, you got rid of Alex Caruso, and you got rid of DeMar DeRozan, and you have Chris Duarte, 2 second-round picks, and Josh Giddey to show for it. I don't think that's a great package in any way, shape, or form. For those guys, you should at least have a first to show for it or something. You got rid of one of the best defensive players in the league, and you got rid of a very, very quality player in DeMar DeRozan, who's going to give a team 25 points per game. He's going to be a very clutch player, and at the very least, I think DeMar DeRozan raises your floor. I think DeMar DeRozan raises your floor. I don't think with this team, how it's constructed, that they're going to be terrible by any means. I feel like even if it was just DeMar and Sabonis without De'Aaron, I feel like they could still keep themselves afloat. But I just don't think this is going to be a very crazy move. But DeMar has the potential to make a team just this much better. He raised the floor, like I said. So the fact that you traded a guy who, although he is old. DeMar is getting up there in age. He's about to be 35. He's coming off a season where he just averaged 24 points per game. And I feel like, one of the most clutch players in the league. You got to get more for that. You have to get more for that. And I'm glad that the Chicago Bulls are picking a direction, and it looks like they're clearly rebuilding. They're trying to get rid of Zach LaVine, which is clearly a hard task. I can only assume that Vucevic is going to be gone sooner or later as well. But I'm just not impressed with these first two moves. I'm very disappointed. And after the Caruso trade went down, I was like, they're most likely going to have to get a good trade for DeMar, or it's not coming. I don't see them getting a good trade for Zach LaVine at this point. It seems like, even though I don't think it should be the case, it's really mostly because of the amount of money he's making. Zach LaVine is still a quality player, in my opinion, but the amount of money he's making, nobody's going to want to trade for that, especially when his position has so many players of that archetype. And I thought the big deal was going to come with DeMar, and it just didn't. I don't understand what exactly they were going for when they did this. Like, Chris Duarte in 2 seconds is what you got. I'm not a huge fan of that. I guess getting young players and getting picks and assets that you can stack up on is the goal right now. But I know you lost a lot of picks getting Vucevic here in the first place, and you're not doing it justice. I'm not gonna lie. For the players that you got rid of and the picks that you got rid of, for you to not even have a first round pick and you only have Chris Duarte and Josh Giddey, it's the immediate beginning of your rebuild. So it's like, it's neither here nor there just yet. But I really was expecting a little bit more. I'm not expecting a Mikal Bridges or a KD type of deal, but not even one first round pick or a player or a young player that I feel like can blossom into something huge. Like, I think Josh Giddey is cool, but I don't think Josh Giddey has that potential to really be an all-star type player. I don't think so. And they just really didn't get anybody. And I feel like DeMar DeRozan and Caruso, those are two players that you absolutely, each of them, could have gotten you something more than what they ended up getting. I feel like the Chicago Bulls fumbled this whole situation. A lot of these trades should have happened last year in the middle of the season instead of this year in free agency. You even have more players that have just walked off the roster that you could have got rid of as well. Like Andre Drummond should have got traded last year at the deadline. Same with Caruso. And I can argue pretty much everybody on that team. I knew Chicago was going to be a thrift shop coming into this year's free agency. They have no leverage whatsoever. But even with that said, they're getting extremely lowballed, and they're pretty much just giving people away. I'm still hopeful that Lonzo Ball comes back healthy and see where he goes. I feel like that could be very interesting. And maybe Zach LaVine too, because they're still shopping him. I know that he's going to get traded for absolutely nothing. I feel like at this point you might as well just let him play. I know the relationship between the team and Zach is terrible, but yeah, I don't know. This is just a weird look for Chicago. I'm not a big fan of how they handled this. And lastly, for the Spurs, I think the Spurs did something very interesting this offseason. They got Chris Paul and they got Harrison Barnes, and they did this without giving up any of their young players. So I think it's very interesting that they brought in these two vets that aren't going to step on toes. I think if you were going to bring in some veterans, Harrison Barnes and Chris Paul are like the perfect people to have around Wemby. Those are two very plug and play kind of guys. They bring the veteran presence. Harrison Barnes got a championship. We already know who Chris Paul is. So you bring those two guys on to help the younger players, and they're also quality players as well. This is going to raise their floor. I think Wemby has the potential to be a top 10 player next season, at least. In my eyes, he's already a top 3 big man. So you bring these two players on to be pieces that know what they're doing. They've been in the game. They got the experience, and that's really what this team was lacking last year a lot. They were lacking a lot of integrity, and they were lacking a lot of experience. So you bring these guys out here, and I feel like that's going to help them immensely. I think what the Spurs are doing is very underrated, and it's kind of too early to tell if Wemby could really spearhead them to a play-in or a playoff berth this season. But I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't be surprised. I feel like when you add, I'm not saying Chris Paul is this great player anymore. I don't think he is. But as a point guard and as a veteran leader, he's definitely going to add a presence there. He's going to run that offense the way it should be ran. And I feel like under Pop, they'll make something shake with that. Harrison Barnes is just a quality player, point blank, period. He's gonna bring you some good shooting. He's gonna play some good defense. Like I said, he got that leadership and the experience as well. So I think those are very, very underrated picks. I hope they're not done. I really do hope they're not done. Low key, I've been hearing rumors about Lauri Markkanen. I do hope that happens, because that's going to be a squad. CP, Harrison Barnes, Lauri Markkanen, and Victor Wembanyama would be a squad. I think that would be some great basketball right there. And that would make the Western Conference even more stacked. We got the Grizzlies coming back next season. We don't know what the Spurs going to look like. We got Houston coming back next season after they ended off the season really, really hot last year. I think it's going to be a super dogfight. I don't think anybody's spot is solidified. I got my teams that I think are on the top of the Western Conference. But yeah, I think the West is going to be crazy next season. Super crazy. In terms of free agency, I do believe that's pretty much it, to be honest. From what I wanted to talk about in this video, some small stuff like Tobias Harris and Tim Hardaway Jr. are on the Pistons. I think that could help the Pistons a lot. They needed the three-point shooting and the spacing, and having that spacing, I think Cade is going to have a lot more opportunity to really mix up his game and show us what he got. I don't think the Pistons last year on paper should have been the worst team in the league. And this season, they definitely should not be adding two very quality scorers to their team. So I think having those shooters on the court, having spacing on the court will definitely help this team out. And Tim Hardaway Jr., I feel like this is probably the perfect situation for him. Like, he can just take shots on end. He's gonna get his looks, gonna get his touches. So in this situation, I feel like that's perfect. Have some guys who are gonna shoot, because they need offense. Lord knows they need some offense. And what else we got here? Ooh, Malik Beasley and Tim Hardaway Jr. on the same team is nasty work. That's nasty work. Neither of them going past the rock. Jonas Valanciunas, he kind of confused me. I don't know why he signed a cheap deal on a bad team. Like, I really don't understand that. He signed a 3-year, $30 million contract. That's $10 million a year to play with the Wizards. Like, I really would have just went to Los Angeles for all that, because you're not going to win anything in Washington. And you're not making a lot of money, so I really don't see what the plus here was for Vooch going to the Wizards. That's a super weird deal. Besides Paul George, I like what Philly got going on. They signed Drummond, they got Kelly Oubre back, they got Eric Gordon, and now they got Caleb Martin off the Heat, which I think is huge. They got a lot of shooters. They got Eric Gordon. Like I said, Caleb Martin, those are two shooters right there. They got Maxey on here. They got shooters around Embiid. And of course, we all know PG is a shooter. They ended up losing Melton and Hield, who are also two shooters. But they are picking up the pieces, getting good role players in return for what they did lose. And they added Paul George on top of that. So shout out Philly. I feel like they're building their roster really, really nice. And yeah, I feel like if there's any team in the East that's going to beat them right now, it's them or the Knicks. And the Knicks don't really have a center right now, so they got to figure that out. That's going to be a huge thing for New York. Like, they have great wings, they have great guards, but that team is really small right now. Like, Mikal Bridges is going to be at the 2. Most likely it's going to be like JB, Mikal, and then they going to run OG, Julius Randle, and they need a big man. And then they got DiVincenzo, Josh Hart off the bench. I think they let McBride go. So unless they're planning on keeping Mitch Robinson and hoping that he stays healthy, but I don't really see that happening. Mitchell Robinson hasn't been healthy in quite some time for an entire season. So, and then losing out on Hartenstein is really, really huge, to be honest. So, yeah, we're going to hope that they get a big man. I feel like if they get a quality big man that's going to stay in the court, that's going to really be the deciding factor on whether they can hang with a lot of these teams, because I don't really see them beating Philly if they don't have any big man to check and beat, especially with Paul George on the floor now, even though they got a defense to specifically attack a team like that and specifically attack a team like the Celtics. They got a lot of perimeter defense. So next year is going to be real interesting. I feel like a lot of these teams are getting stacked up, and honestly, it is time for some new franchises to come in. I feel like a lot of these teams, to be able to have rosters like this, like the Knicks got a lot of firepower. The Celtics got a lot of firepower. And I feel like add 2 more franchises, there's more max contracts to go around. It's going to split some of that up, divvy up the talent even more. I love where the parity is in the NBA, but I feel like even adding that little extra step could just add a little bit more of that, split up some of these teams and make it a little harder for a lot of these stars, so we can have... I low-key want to go back to the days where you could... I don't think this was ever really the case where you could win it, but having one star on your team and you can genuinely compete, because you can't do that today. You cannot. If you have one star in a mediocre roster, you're not getting past the first round. And it's been like that since like 2015, 2016. It's just not... It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. But, yeah. That's pretty much all I have to say about free agency. It's been very interesting. It started off slow, but it picked up speed. We got a lot of movement. Paul George, DeMar, Klay Thompson, Hartenstein, even smaller guys. You got like KCP, D'Anthony Melton, Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson. It's been very, very interesting. A lot of movement. I'm very excited for next season. Catch you on the next one.